Cavewoman tries on modern clothes. An epic failure. Imagine for a moment that you could bring someone from the distant past into the present. We're not talking about a few centuries ago, but truly far away, the Paleolithic era about 30,000 years ago. Now imagine that this person is a woman, accustomed to wearing crudely tanned animal skins, perhaps some bone and shell adornments, and you decide to take her shopping in a modern mall. The result? An absolute disaster that makes us question everything we consider natural about fashion, comfort, and even what it means to be dressed. Let's start from the beginning. Our hypothetical protagonist, let's call her Kara, has lived her entire life in a world where clothing had a single fundamental purpose: to protect the body from the elements. Cold, heat, rain, wind, branches, and thorns while walking through the forest. Clothes were survival tools, as essential as a sharp spear or the knowledge of where to find clean water. Each garment was the result of hours, sometimes days of hard work. Hunting the animal, carefully removing the skin so as not to damage it, tanning it with natural fats and tannins, cutting and sewing using tendons as thread and sharp bones as needles. A single garment represented an immense investment of time and energy. Now, we transport Kara to a modern department store. The fluorescent lights would already be an initial shock, that constant artificial glow that doesn't come from the sun or fire. But the real impact happens when she encounters the endless rows of clothes. Hundreds, thousands of pieces hanging on racks, folded on shelves, in every imaginable color, and many she has never seen in nature. Electric blue, neon pink, intricate digital prints that seem to move before her eyes. The abundance alone would be incomprehensible. How can so many clothes exist in one place? Who made them? How many lives were needed to produce all of this? The first item we offer her is something simple: a cotton t-shirt. At first glance, it might seem like a sensible choice. After all, it's basic and comfortable. But when Kara touches it, the confusion is immediate. The fabric is too soft, too thin. She stretches it between her fingers, testing its resistance, and frowns. How can this protect against anything? So light it barely feels like it's there. In her mind, shaped by decades of practical experience, this isn't real clothing. It's almost like being naked. And when we finally manage to explain, through exaggerated gestures, that she should wear it, another problem arises: the neck opening. Kara had never seen anything like it. Her clothes were tunics open at the sides, tied with leather straps, or cloaks that simply draped over her body. The idea of sticking her head through a narrow hole, temporarily blind and vulnerable, activates all her survival instincts. She resists, and when we finally convince her, she emerges on the other side visibly uncomfortable, pulling the fabric away from her body as if it were burning her skin. The soft texture of cotton, which for us is synonymous with comfort, is strange and artificial to her. Her skin is accustomed to the uneven texture of leather, to the comforting weight of furs. This feels wrong on a visceral level. But the real fun begins when we try on jeans. Jeans, that modern invention that has become so universal that we forget how peculiar it really is. Kara looks at the garment with genuine bewilderment. Two tubes sewn together? What's the point of that? Her clothes have always been looser, allowing free movement. When she finally understands that she has to put each leg inside a separate tube, the process is both comical and frustrating. She loses her balance, stumbles, almost falls. And then comes the real challenge: the button and the zipper. Let's pause here to truly appreciate the absurdity of a jeans zipper from the perspective of someone who has never seen anything like it. It's a fastening system composed of dozens of tiny metal teeth that interlock via a sliding slider, protected by a fabric flap that fastens with a button that passes through a hole specifically designed for it. For us, who learned this in childhood, it's automatic. For Kara, it's an impossible puzzle. She pulls the zipper up, but it jams because she didn't align the teeth correctly first. She tries to press the button, but doesn't understand the principle of the hole. Why is there this hole in the fabric? What is she supposed to do with it? After 15 minutes of struggling and repeated demonstrations, she finally manages to put on the jeans. And she looks absolutely miserable. The stiff fabric restricts her movements in ways she's never experienced. She can't squat completely. Sitting on the floor cross-legged, a natural position for her, has become uncomfortable. The waistband of the jeans tightens in specific places, creating pressure points that her traditional clothing, evenly distributed across her body, never caused. She walks a few steps and notices the fabric rubbing between her legs in an irritating way. Why would anyone choose to wear this voluntarily? But we don't stop there. Someone has the brilliant idea of showing her a modern bra. And this is where things go from confusing to completely bizarre. Kara stares at the object with the same expression you would have when looking at an alien surgical instrument. It's a complex engineering structure. Molded cups, support wires, adjustable straps with multiple hooks, back closures with various levels of tightness. What is each part for? How does it relate to the human body? When we finally demonstrated, putting it on over her t-shirt to make it easier, she was horrified. Why would anyone restrain part of their body like that? The constant pressure, the feeling of confinement, the wires pressing against her ribs. To her, this isn't clothing, it's a kind of trap or restriction. And the clasps on the back? Does she need help putting on and taking off her own clothes? This completely eliminates her autonomy and independence. In her mindset, formed in an environment where you need to be able to dress quickly, perhaps in an emergency, this is unthinkable. And let's not even begin to explain that many modern women wear this every day for reasons that have more to do with social expectations than practical need. We decided to show her something more formal, a party dress. It's a pretty piece, with shiny synthetic fabric, an invisible side zipper, and thin straps. Kara touches the material and immediately rejects it. It's too slippery, cold against her skin, and makes a strange sound when she moves, like a ghostly whisper. The side zipper is even more confusing than the one on her pants because she can't see it while trying to operate it. And the thin straps? She tugs at them, testing them, and shakes her head. They don't hold anything up. A gust of wind and the whole thing could come off. How is this considered appropriate attire for any occasion? Then someone mentions high heels, and we have to explain the concept through elaborate mime. Kara observes stiletto heels with growing disbelief. Are you saying that people voluntarily place their feet on elevated platforms that unbalance them, make running difficult, make walking on uneven terrain impossible, and cause pain after prolonged use? And why do they do that? When we try to explain that it's pretty or elegant, she looks at us as if we've completely lost our minds. In her life, mobility is survival. Compromising her ability to move efficiently isn't elegance. It's suicide. But perhaps the most surreal moment comes when we try to explain fast fashion, the concept of seasonal trends, the fact that people constantly buy new clothes not because the old ones are worn out, but because they're out of style. Kara literally doesn't have words to process this in her language. In her culture, if a garment is still functional, you wear it. You fix it, mend it, adapt it. Throwing away something perfectly useful is an unthinkable waste of resources and labor. The idea that there are people who own closets full of clothes they've barely worn, who buy new pieces simply because the color or cut is no longer fashionable, would be seen as a form of collective madness. We tried showing her modern underwear, and that introduced a whole new level of confusion. Why layer upon layer? Panties, bra, t-shirt, pants, socks, shoes, and maybe even a jacket. That's 7 or 8 individual pieces where she would wear 2 at most. Each additional layer restricts movement a little more, adds time to the dressing and undressing process, creates more items to wash and maintain. And the materials, polyester, nylon, elastane, lycra, synthetic fabrics derived from petroleum that don't exist in nature, that don't breathe like the leather or primitive linen she would know. She sweats in these modern clothes in ways she's never experienced before. And then there are the specialized clothes. We try to explain that there are specific clothes for sleeping, different from loungewear, different from going out clothes, different from workout clothes, different from swimwear. Each activity has its own uniform. Kara, who probably slept in the same furs she wore during the day, perhaps just removing the outer layer, is perplexed. Why do you need specific clothes to sleep in? Aren't you just lying down? And gym clothes made of technical fabrics that wick away moisture. She spent the whole day hunting, gathering, carrying things, walking miles, all in the same clothes. The idea of needing something special to exercise is comical. But the real flaw, the fundamental failure of this whole experiment, isn't in the technical difficulties of buttons, zippers, and fasteners. It's in the complete disconnect between the original purpose of clothing and what it has become. For Kara, clothing is pure function. Each element serves a clear and verifiable purpose. Does the clothing keep her warm? Does it protect her from cuts and scratches? Does it allow her to move freely to perform the tasks she needs to accomplish? Is it durable? Can it be repaired? These are the only questions that matter. But for us, in the modern world, clothing has long since transcended function. We dress to communicate social status, to express identity, to follow complex and often arbitrary cultural norms, to attract attention or to blend in, to project professionalism or rebellion. We wear uncomfortable clothes because they look good. We buy things that barely fit because they're fashionable. We own 20 pairs of shoes when 2 would be functionally sufficient. And trying to explain this to someone for whom every object is precious because it represents hours of hard work is impossible. When Kara finally stands in the middle of the store, wearing a poorly fitting combination of trendy clothes that she clearly hates, she's probably thinking one thing. These people have completely lost touch with reality. They've created problems where none existed. They've turned the simple task of covering the body into a complex labyrinth of choices, social rules, voluntary discomfort, and extravagant waste. And we, looking at her, are probably thinking that she simply doesn't understand, can't appreciate the sophistication, the variety, the self-expression that modern fashion allows. But who is really right? Kara, who can make her own clothes from natural materials, who intimately understands every step of the process, whose clothes are perfectly suited to her environment and lifestyle. Or us, who depend on incomprehensibly complex global supply chains, who wear synthetic materials produced through chemical processes we don't understand, who follow fashion rules dictated by people we'll never meet, and who often sacrifice comfort and practicality on the altar of appearance. Kara's failure to adapt to modern clothing isn't really her failure. It's a mirror reflecting back at us, showing how far we've strayed from basic, practical principles. Every difficulty she faces, every moment of confusion, every piece of clothing she rejects as uncomfortable or impractical, is an implicit question. Why? Why do you do it this way? And often, we don't have a good answer beyond, that's how we've always done it, or everyone does it this way. This thought experiment forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about our relationship with clothing and consumption. We've become so accustomed to abundance that we've lost our sense of value. A t-shirt that costs $5 seems cheap, but only because we don't think about the hands that sewed it on the other side of the world, the resources used, the transportation involved. Kara, who would take weeks to make a single garment, understands true value in a way that we have lost. And in the end, when we allow Kara to remove all those modern clothes and return to her comfortable, familiar skin, the relief on her face says it all. She can breathe again. She can move freely. She feels her skin against natural material she understands and trusts. She is dressed appropriately for her world, her needs, her understanding of how things should be. Her failure wasn't to adapt to our world. It was ours to forget the lessons she still carries. That clothes should serve us, not the other way around. That comfort and function matter more than outward appearances. That there is dignity in simplicity and wisdom in questioning why we do things in certain ways. Perhaps it's time to look at our overflowing closets, our uncomfortable but stylish clothes, our endless cycle of buying and discarding, and ask, who is really living more sensibly here?